Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 6, 2009, the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Bishop, is now recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, 134 Republicans came here to the floor and spoke for 1 minute each about the issue of jobs and where they have been. For indeed, we were promised that there would be jobs that would be created and saved if we simply passed a stimulus bill and didn't take the time to read it like a couple of others we did. Unfortunately, the reality has not been quite the same. In fact, this is basically the report card that we came up with. Okay. See, this administration said that if we quickly passed that huge stimulus bill, there would be some unemployment, but it would only be 8%. In fact, the dark blue line here is what they said would be the recovery path of our economy. They said if we didn't do that, we would follow a trajectory of the light blue line and actually have 9.5% unemployment. That's a difference of 3 million workers being out of a job if we took the time to actually read the bill and think about it. Sad part is, though, after 5.5 months, the trajectory line is actually the red dots there, which means we are far exceeding anything that was projected, whether we did the stimulus or didn't do the stimulus. In fact, you can arguably say that we might have been better off not doing anything at all. The Vice President was correct when he said that this administration totally misread the economy. Nonetheless, Speaker Pelosi and President Obama have teamed together to put the largest budget, and we're still in the process of voting for it. We are on track now, Mr. Speaker, of actually spending $4 trillion in this year's cycle. We are spending money like it was monopoly money, with the possible exception that you can't pass go and you don't get $200 every time you do it. To put this kind of concept in place, at $4 trillion, we would be spending $1 billion every 2.2 hours. To put it in perspective again, if you tried to pay off the $4 trillion, that means every household in America would have to cough up 35 grand to try and cover that. And the problem that we have with that is simply we don't have that kind of money lying around, whether we spend it or not. In fact, we will be predicted to be in a deficit. The CBO scores this year's deficit at $1.85 trillion. That's the amount of money we'll spend that we have absolutely no funds for. Now, you can see on this chart, back there at the turn of this century, we actually had a surplus. You can notice when 9/11 hit, we went into deficits. Those gray lines are the deficits that were run up by the big spending George W. Bush. At least he was accused of that. What we have over here is what we have been spending ever since. The light red lines are the estimates of the Obama administration. The dark red lines are the estimates of our Congressional Budget Office, and they predict that this year it's $1.85 trillion that we will overspend. Now, this isn't perhaps the best view of this. Is only 1 year shot of what we are doing as far as our finances. If we actually took a bigger view of it and tried to find all the things we still owe, we are actually at about $11.6 trillion in total debt. And if you add things like the bailouts and the bank rescues and the auto recovery loans that we've had, we're about $23 trillion in debt, which is difficult when our total gross domestic product is about $14 trillion. Let me put that in kind of a perspective for you. When we went to the moon, if you put the money we spent on that effort to go to the moon in today's dollars, we would have spent around $200 billion. Everything FDR did in the New Deal to try and get us out of the old original Depression, in today's dollars would be about $500 billion. If you took everything we spent on World War II, that's about $4 trillion. Today, we are spending in real dollars $4 trillion and a deficit of almost $2 trillion and a total deficit of $23 trillion of everything combined. That was not the change that we were promised. And the proponents of the stimulus package quite frankly, view its failure in the fact that we didn't put enough money into it, and that we perhaps should have another stimulus factor to spend more money. The Democrat solution, quite frankly, is we need to spend more money. The bottom line, though, is spending money is not the same thing as creating jobs. There are other alternatives that are out there. The Republican Party has introduced almost 1,000 bills of alternatives that have never been allowed to be discussed on this floor. We had one called the no-cost stimulus bill. It was estimated that it would grow our gross domestic product by $10 trillion and create 2 million jobs, and would cost the taxpayer exactly nothing, and has still yet to be allowed to be discussed on this particular floor. Now, we come here today as part of a Western caucus with understanding that much of what we do and the West is a catalyst for us solving this particular problem and moving our economy ahead. Unfortunately, this administration, which misdiagnosed what the stimulus would do, has also misdiagnosed the opportunity that so much of our public lands offer to us. It is not an effort to try and destroy the environment, but there are enough resources we have in this country that we could create an energy policy that would indeed build real jobs. Unfortunately, this administration looks at the gift that it has at its disposal and instead goes in the opposite direction. It creates an environmental policy that is aimed at benefiting special interest groups, so that instead of using our resources to create jobs, we actually are sacrificing jobs to a false ideology. We have, in this opportunity today, we're going to be talking about some of the things this administration is doing which actually harms this country and loses jobs when we have a great opportunity to try and grow jobs if we just use the resources that we had wisely. I am joined and will be talking with Representative McClintock of California, has a unique area that deals with the forest area that has a chance of actually bringing people together for a benefit that could grow jobs, help the economy, help the environment. For some reason, we simply are not doing it. We'll be joined later by Representative Thompson, Pennsylvania. Not necessarily the West, but he has the same situation with a forest in Pennsylvania. Once again, the administrative misuse of land policy is costing people jobs and should not be there. I'm joined by my good friend, Representative Brown from Georgia. He's going to try and put all this into some kind of perspective at the same time as we deal with this issue and other issues, all of which have the same problem of costing us jobs. And hopefully there will be a few more members who will join us before this hour has concluded. And I'd also like to talk to a couple of policies that this administration has started, which in reality costs American jobs, when we should be producing jobs with the resources that we have. But, Mr. Speaker, with that said, I'd like, first of all, to yield some time to Representative McClintock of California, who has a wonderful opportunity of creating jobs in California, desperately needing the jobs, desperately needing